This avalanche safety report is brought to you by Mountain TV. Learn more at mtn-tv.com.
I'm Shannon Lukens with Mountain TV, along with Brian Lazar, who knows everything avalanches with Colorado Avalanche Information Center. Brian, tell us what is happening this week.
All right, I'll have to push back a little bit. I don't think I know everything. I'm still learning, but I know a bit. So let's talk about what happened this week. The main highlight was our biggest snowfall event, which took place on Tuesday and Tuesday night. And you can see here what it did was drop a widespread 4 to 8 inches across most mountain areas. Some of our areas most furthest west, like the northwest side of the San Juan Mountains, the Grand Mesa, portions of the West Elk Mountains, and into the flat tops got upwards of a foot or more. And that did lead to an uptick in avalanche danger with widespread considerable avalanche danger, or level 3 out of 5. And a lot of that was due to because not only the new snowfall, but it came with a ton of wind. This was even rocking houses and blowing off shingles in some mountain towns. And you can see here, this is wind data from the Berthoud Pass weather station, but it's really indicative of what was going on across most mountain areas. You can see we had steady winds in the 20 to 30 mile an hour range. This is at 11,800 feet. With gusts as high as 80 or even more in some places. And the winds were switching. So the storm originally came in from the southwest, and then it switched to the northwest as we got that colder air, which means it was drifting that snow that fell on Tuesday and Tuesday night in a variety of directions. And that led to a new generation of wind slab avalanches from all the drifting snow. And here's what a lot of those looked like. So you can see we're building our fresh generation of wind drifted slabs. Here's right near ridgeline. And you can see these avalanches are breaking generally kind of 1 to 2 feet deep. These will get a little bit thicker with continued drifting as we move towards the weekend, and a little bit more snow to add fuel to the fire. And those avalanches will just get a little bit thicker and a little bit stiffer. So we're warning about all the wind drifted snow, which are producing avalanches that look like this. So again, early in that loading event and in the drifting, the avalanches are breaking generally 1 to 2 feet deep. In the more heavily wind drifted areas, as we get closer and into the weekend, these could break up to 3 feet deep. And you can see here, they're breaking in where you'd expect them, heavily wind-loaded features. Here's an avalanche up near Berthoud Pass. You can see in that right-hand side of this image, an avalanche broke right below the ridgeline in a thin, rocky area that received a lot of wind-drifted snow. And one last one in this fresh wind-drifted snow from up near Vail Pass. This one is triggered by a snowmobiler traversing the slope from below, but you can see again, a lot of plump wind drifted pillows here in thin rocky areas, and this is where we're warning people to be aware of all that wind drifted snow.
And what about the weak layers in the snowpack that you told us about last week?
Yeah, they're still there. They're a little bit deeper in the snowpack, and where in the snowpack we're most concerned about really depends on where in the state you are. So in the most deepest areas, we're worried about avalanches that got buried in early and late March. And these are these upper kind of 2 stripes. And those are really the ones that we're most worried about in areas that have more than about 6 feet of snow on the ground. In areas that are thinner, that has less than about 4 or 5 feet of snow on the ground, we still have weak layers closer to the ground that are still a concern. And this snowpack test in one of those thinner, weak areas shows you why. So you can see here, we can still get avalanches breaking on that weak snow near the ground, particularly in areas that have less than about 4 or 5 feet max of snow on the ground. And those are producing, some fairly scary avalanches, like this one near Wolf Creek Pass. You can see a step deep down near the ground, producing some fairly unpredictable and fairly deep crowns. Here's a snowmobile triggered avalanche in Grand Mesa. So not a very big terrain feature, but I want you to look at this plump wind drifted pillow. It did break all the way to the ground, so that's quite thick. And because it broke all the way to the ground, it entrained quite a lot of debris and into a terrain trap or a gully feature. And this really highlights this idea that small avalanches and bad terrain features can still be quite dangerous. And then as you move into the alpine or more connected terrain, you can get these monster-sized avalanches like this one on Axtell, west of Crested Butte. And you can see that this avalanche broke down near the ground on those more deeper buried weak layers and broke across a very wide swath of terrain. You get caught up in avalanches like this, and these are very, very difficult to survive. So we want to point out the most dangerous slopes to avoid. The bullseye for our most recent avalanche activity exists on northeast facing slopes, as you can see here. But right on north facing slopes on the shoulder and east facing slopes, we still had quite a bit of avalanche activity because those are those aspects that are harboring those more deeply buried persistent weak layers. And now we're just loading them with wind drifted snow. Because of the variable wind directions that have occurred during and prior to our storm events, with a little bit more loading going on as we move towards the weekend, we've had to expand our most dangerous areas to include both northwest and southeast facing slopes, which really just leaves the south, southwest, and west facing slopes as areas that offer some safer riding options, largely because they've been scoured of a lot of the new snow that fell, and they don't have all of those buried persistent weak layers. And so if we can avoid those aspects, particularly with slopes that look like this, we can really reduce our chances of triggering an avalanche. I want to point out here that this is obviously a highly wind affected piece of terrain. You can see it's been scoured, and we've got bare ground next to big, plump, fat pillows of wind drifted snow. And if we can stay away from these wind drifted pillows of snow, particularly on north and east facing slopes that are steeper than about 35 degrees, we can greatly reduce our risk of triggering avalanches and enjoy all that fresh snow out there this weekend.
Thank you, Brian. And can we avoid using the word monster avalanches in the future?
I will come up with a better adjective. I understand that that's scary.
Too scary, too scary. Anyway, thank you so much. And whenever you're going in the backcountry, remember, check Colorado Avalanche Information Center, colorado.gov /avalanche. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. We'll see you next week.